Hey, what's up everyone? Craig here in my own patch of paradise. Now, as us tropical gardeners are tending to our tropical style gardens in the heat of summer, they are exuberant and lush. There are big, bold tropical blooms and leaves so big that we can take shelter from unexpected rain showers underneath them. But as we're tending to our tropical and exotic style gardens, there's something impending and fast approaching that no gardener can avoid, especially those of us who love growing exotic style plants. Winter. Winter can damage tropical style gardens, leaving your garden feeling bare and barren, and your pockets feeling empty because of all of the money that you've spent on these beautiful tropical style plants in the excitement of summer. But that doesn't have to be the case. Plants have adapted a number of tricks to help us keep our gardens looking really good and really resilient throughout the year. And I'm going to split this video into 3 tricks that we will come to understand so that we can make really good selections when we're choosing plants for our tropical style gardens, so that they are bulletproof. They will be really resilient to cold winter weather, and you will still have beautiful lush foliage to look at throughout the year. So one of the very first tricks that plants have evolved to help them cope with cold winter conditions is to develop thick, waxy evergreen leaves. Now, these have 2 benefits. Waxy leaves, it's called a waxy cuticle, and that upper surface of the leaf being covered in that thick layer is going to prevent transpiration, which is the process of losing water in hot weather. So these plants are going to be really resilient to drought and hot, windy weather, but it doubles up as like an insulation blanket protecting these evergreen plants from penetrating cold weather. Now, obviously, evergreen plants have the added benefit of giving you something to look at in those bare winter months. So plants like Fatsia, which comes in different forms. Fatsia japonica, there's the variegated form of that. There's a form called camouflage, and obviously the very vigorous plain green Fatsia japonica, and there's another species, Fatsia polycarpa, which has beautifully narrow leaves, and in my opinion it's one of the most exotic looking out of the Fatsia genus. You can also grow plants like Pseudopanax, which is in the same family as Fatsia, with its evergreen palmate leaves, and they come in different shapes and sizes. And Euphorbia is another great evergreen shrub that will freeze solid, but it bounces back when it thaws out. Now, I grow Euphorbia mellifera cross pasteuri and a cultivar called John Phillips, and it's been featured on this channel so many times before. And for me, it's been hardier than the normal Euphorbia mellifera, staying evergreen, even though being frozen completely solid for several nights in a row, and then bursting into flower in this life-giving warmth of spring. The second trick that plants have evolved that we can use to utilize in our garden and to create a tropical style garden that is much more resilient to cold weather is going dormant and lignification. Now, what do I mean when I say lignification? It's a botanical word for going woody. So the cells on the outside of a tree trunk that have gone woody are called lignified cells. And these cells are technically dead, and they act as a protective barrier for penetrating cold. So trees and shrubs will shed their leaves when cold weather is approaching, hence all of the colours that we get appearing in autumn. My roost tree is a really good example of this. It colours up as all of the fluids and the sugars are being drawn out of the leaves, and the tree is preparing to deal with cold weather. It draws all of the fluids down in the trunk and into the root zone. Now, this has an added benefit. By shedding the leaves, these plants are shedding any tender, delicate material that is more susceptible to being damaged by cold weather, and then drawing in the water and any fluids down into the trunk and into the root zone. That is concentrating any sugars that are in the cells of the plant, and because it is concentrated sugar, it's raising the temperature at which these cells are susceptible to freezing. It's a bit like a plant's own antifreeze, and this is something that we can utilize in our garden. So if you can find deciduous shrubs and trees that come from countries or areas that have colder weather conditions, these plants are going to be really well suited to a tropical style garden somewhere that experiences cold winters. So for me, I grow the golden Indian bean tree, which is called Catalpa bignonioides. And it has these large heart-shaped golden green leaves. It goes completely dormant in winter and then pushes out a flush of golden leaves in spring that are tinted red as the new leaves emerge. I also grow a plant that's considered common, Sambucus nigra, and mine is a cultivar called Blue Sheen because these deep purple leaves have a really nice metallic blue sheen when you catch them at the right angle. This goes completely dormant in winter and then pushes out so much growth relatively early in the year. Now I mentioned my Rhus typhina, which is the tree that forms the central canopy in my tropical style garden. It pushes out its foliage after holding its ornamental seed heads all winter long, and then casts dapple shade over my tropical style garden and helps insulate the garden from any passing wind, creating a warm microclimate, perfect for all of the tender tropical plants that I grow at ground level. This tree puts on a real show in autumn, with fiery orange colours really livening up the garden when so many things are starting to look a bit worse for wear. And the third method plants use to protect themselves from cold winter weather conditions is utilising the warmth of the root zone. What do I mean by this? So below soil level is always warmer than ambient air temperature. So in winter, when the air is cold and there's ice, perhaps snow, below soil level it stays warmer. So plants like herbaceous perennials will die back above ground level and go dormant at soil level, storing all of the starch and sugars in their root zone until the conditions are favourable in spring. Now plants that do this are things like Persicaria, and I grow a really nice cultivar called Purple Fantasy, which will grow at the first sign of heat in spring, and it has this amazing foliage, triangular shaped with a purple arrow on it. It looks super exotic and it's really, really vigorous. Of course, cannas die back to their underground rhizome in winter, and they will start producing foliage again in the heat of spring. You can get herbaceous hibiscus, and let's not forget about hardy impatiens that die back to the root zone, and of course Musa basjou, which is the hardy banana. This isn't a tree at all, it's actually just a giant herb. There is no woody material on this plant. If we get severe cold, it will die down to ground level, and it can potentially regrow from the root zone, and when this happens you will often see more than one plant emerging. By utilising this knowledge, we can select plants that are well suited to the countries that we're growing our gardens in, and we can keep that tropical look year round and know that in spring the money that we've spent plants on is well spent, because they will come back when the conditions are right. Hopefully you found this video useful, and if you did, please hit subscribe, and if you've got any questions at all, please visit our forum, where we have chat rooms and a social network where you can upload pictures, ask questions, and the community will come together to support each other. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in there as well.